Funny.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna let some people in.
Okay.
I see some people coming in.
Yeah.
I can't see any faces, but I see Judy, Leslie, Dorothy, Marnie,
Judy.
a lot of E's.
Yeah.
Brendan.
Perfect. Well, welcome everyone. We are in the process of letting folks into the room. So give us a few minutes here and we will let folks in. And then we'll get started here in a couple minutes as we let more and more Wooster alumni and parents and friends into our fresh look at time management. Clearly, the folks who are joining us exactly on time or a little bit early, you may not even need help with time management because you are here on time, ready to go, which is good. You know, the folks who join us, 10 minutes in, maybe they need a little more refresher on how important time management is. Ann, are you someone who is always early to everything or are you an on time?
I used to be the kind of person who would have an appointment in 20 minutes and it would take 15 minutes to get there. And I would squeeze an email in those 5 minutes before getting in the car. But I have since become someone who has an appointment and leaves like 30 minutes buffer time because I'm ordering an Uber and I don't have a car anymore. So I want to make sure that if they're late, I'm not late to the appointment. And one time I arrived and I know I'm really early. I'm fine. I have a book. I'll just sit here and wait. And they said, oh no, we can take you right now. And I left before my scheduled appointment time. And that was a whole new world. I had no idea that that was even possible.
See, it's all the importance of showing up a little bit early, right? I also don't really like to stress myself out if I don't have to. And, I travel a lot all over the country. And so I'm one of those people who gets to the airport 2 hours early for everything because I figure I never want to run. I don't want to run to begin with. Secondly, I don't want to run in an airport. And so, I'm always there nice and early. Well, perfect. We have more and more Wooster alumni joining us. So thank you so much for being here. We are going to give it probably another minute or so. So if you'd like to get up, grab a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a cocktail, whatever you'd like to do, feel free to do that as we're letting more and more people in. They keep coming. So we're going to give it just a few more minutes.
You can also grab something to write on and write with. As there'll be at least one exercise that you may want to partake in, as well as taking any other notes that you're interested in taking.
Perfect. While we're waiting, please feel free to add in the chat where you're joining us from. We see Green Valley, Arizona. Where else are folks calling in from? Rockford, Maryland.
Dorothy is frazzled and very frazzled.
All right. San Jose, California, Atlanta, okay. Alabama. This is great. The really nice part about doing these virtual events is we get to engage alumni from all over the country and also, globally too. So that's really nice. Cleveland and Boston. So thanks so much for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. I know that you're going to learn some really valuable tools and tips throughout the course of the next hour or so. Detroit, Chicago, Dallas. All right. Perfect.
And thanks for letting me know how you're showing up. It actually helps, especially if you are tired or frazzled or skeptical or overwhelmed. Even just writing it out can help you, and it can help me maybe tailor the presentation to those feelings. And as Brene Brown says, two things can be true at the same time. So I can be excited and nervous at the same time.
Lauren's got her kitty in her lap, which is nice. It's probably relaxing.
Yes.
Probably not great for efficiency, but maybe very relaxing. All right, well, we've got a pretty good group of folks here. So I think, Ann, if you're good, I say we get started. What do you think? Good?
Thumbs up.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining us here this evening virtually. My name is Thomas MacArthur, and I serve as the AVP for Alumni and Family Engagement here at the College of Wooster. We are so thrilled to be bringing you another session in our virtual series of career and professional development conversations with national experts. And actually, in our case tonight, international experts, with Ann joining us from our neighbor just a little bit north of us. So we're so thrilled that Ann is here tonight and that all of you are here. We're going to have some great tips, as I said earlier, for you to learn a little bit more. We hope that this will be an interactive session, so there'll be some opportunities for you to do some work and then report out. Ann wants this to be interactive, so we hope that you will do that for us. But before we get started, I'm going to read just a little bit of Ann's bio so that you have an understanding of where she is coming from, her expertise, and how we found Ann. So here we go. Ann is a certified coach, a facilitator, and a curious listener with a background in design and construction, who travels and is a competitive curler and sees the world where everyone thrives in their own jobs. Throughout her consulting career, Ann has explored ways of elevating young professionals by equipping them to thrive with more responsibility and guiding them to develop their career visions beyond just what is laid out for them. Now, as the founder of Winletha, she is a strong advocate for coaching as a critical component of effective professional development. She has produced a video series of strength training exercises for leadership muscles to help individuals expand and advance their leadership skills without waiting for a formal group training day and without needing a team. Winletha's portfolio of coaching services includes different levels of one-on-one coaching and a range of interactive group workshops. Ann has certifications from the Project Management Institute, Integral Coaching Canada, Motivation Factor, and Designing Your Life. We are so thrilled that Ann is here tonight to lead us through a fresh look at time management. Ann, take it away.
Awesome.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh, just tell them Pico will be there since they're bonded.
Oh, we'll put folks on mute. There we go. Perfect.
And as I heard you say that about the strength training exercises for your leadership muscles, I just published my 50th video on that. I had no idea last year that I had 50 of those stories, but apparently I can just keep going with them. I'm excited about that.
Great.
Great. Well, let's warm up with a quick poll. I am interested to hear what kinds of things everyone says to themselves about time. Do any of these ring a bell? I'll catch up on the weekend. I'll do it when I can be more focused. I'll get to it when I get caught up. I just need to be more organized. I wish I had more willpower. That was a waste of my time. Oh, I wish everything would just go according to plan. Have people found the poll?
It looks like it. We're still seeing more and more numbers coming in.
Good.
If we get another second or so. So far, it looks like the leading answers are I'll do it when I can be more focused, and I'll get to it when I get caught up. But Sharon, maybe you want to share the results of that poll?
Well, it looks like every option got a click, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm glad to see that we're not alone in our woes about time. So maybe that's one thing you can take away. You are not alone in some of your challenges. This is a universal challenge. As I put that up, Tom, did any other phrases come to mind?
So it looks like we've got some almost ties between I'll catch up on the weekend and I just need to be more organized. And that was a waste of my time. And also at the same time, we've got a little bit of a tie for I wish everything would go according to plan. So pretty evenly split here.
All right. Well, let's see if we can help reduce the amount of times we say those things to yourself. I do want to triple check that everyone's in the right place. This session is for people who are frustrated, wanting to do it all, who regret procrastination and laziness, who feel pressure to always say yes, who can't find the pause button on the proverbial treadmill, who wonder why controlling time is so hard. I trust that that covers everyone. Yes? All right, we're in the right place. So, to get started, I have an ask and an offer. What I ask, as Tom has already said, is that we engage with this as a conversation, which can be in the chat, it can be off mute, but this is, I'm not on TV, I'm not a TV personality. In return, my goal is that you leave with at least one thought or one tool that makes you feel lighter. And I'll have another bonus offer at the end. So in the spirit of this being an interactive session, I'd like to grant ourselves some permission slips. And this is a Brené Brown tool that you may have learned if you looked through Dare to Lead and other materials of hers. It's a tool that you can do on your own, or you can do it as a group practice. Before you start a working session, check in with yourself on how you're showing up. So for example, I am showing up wanting this to go perfectly. That is my nature. I want this to go perfectly, but I am giving myself permission to be imperfect. Perhaps someone who's showing up who's feeling low energy might give themselves permission to not have their camera on the whole time, but sort of go back and forth to give themselves a break. Or maybe someone who is multitasking might give themselves permission to focus for a certain period of time. On this slide, there are a few other examples. Perhaps you know that you come to these things really conservative. Maybe you grant yourself permission to ask a question or to share a thought, even if you haven't fully fleshed it out yet. I'll take a pause. Tom, maybe do you have a permission slip that comes to mind?
For me, it is likely that be imperfect, right? Because I, like you, are always a perfectionist. And so, there are things outside of our control that we, can't always affect, and that leads to an imperfect, and let's be honest, we're all imperfect. And so therefore we got to accept that. But I think that's the one for me for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. As others, if you are pondering this and this resonates, I encourage you to share that in the chat so that you have given it some energy, and you can manifest it through the rest of the session. All right, so why is time management such a challenge? Right off the bat, I want you to know that definitely it is not some weird personal flaw unique to you, okay? There are so many external forces that are plotting against us in this. A metaphor that really resonates with me is by Edward Hall. And he shares that time is like an unstoppable conveyor belt that brings us new tasks as fast as we can dispatch the old ones. And becoming more productive just seems to cause the belt to speed up. It doesn't mean that it stops. Does this resonate with anybody else? Lauren's already put in, it's like Lucy at the Chocolate Factory. Yeah. Well, then on top of that, we seem to be constantly battling this legacy from factory hours, where employees are paid for a day's work. And so the containers that are going by on the conveyor belt on specific hours, we believe our employer is paying us to fill them during those specific hours. So we feel guilty if we don't deal with those containers on the conveyor belt when they come through at those hours. But we don't work in factories anymore, I don't think. And we see endless messaging around us about planning for our future, which gets us out of our hangout in the present. We hear about getting our retirement accounts in order and managing our mortgage and having dream vacations someday ahead of us. I'm feeling stressed already just talking about this. Then we go ahead and pick up all kinds of expectations for ourselves, which we then never pause to consider, is this realistic? Is this even possible? Like when you pause and look at these sentences, I will get everything done. I will make up time after dinner. I will craft the perfect plan, system, or schedule. I will be set for an amazing retirement. They sound amazing, but none of these are sustainable, and none of these are actually things that we as human beings can do. And yet,
And real quick, and this assumes you just being responsible for yourself, right? This doesn't then factor in that you're a parent with kids, or you're caring for an elder parent, or you're caring for someone else. This is just on your own. Add in all those additional layers of complexity and it becomes much more challenging.
yeah. So some of our challenges with time management are because we're in conflict. We want to believe that we can do everything, but it's just not possible. Why are we holding these mindsets if they are so unhelpful? Just wondering, is it because we believe that if we don't strive, then we're somehow an underachiever, or we're selfish or short-sighted, and we have some negative feelings about those? Is it because we believe that if we just go with it and not push back, then we can avoid the discomfort of making some tough decisions? I think we're somewhere in the right ballpark here. Do people avoid decisions? Why do we avoid decisions? Why do we avoid making some decisions? Lauren says decision fatigue. Yep. often I hear fear. Yeah, fear of not pleasing people. So let's just avoid making the decision at all. Fear of overanalyzing. Yes, thanks, Tina. Too many decisions. Hoping for better data. Yep, I'm just going to stall because I want to make sure. I'm afraid I'm going to make the wrong one. So I'm going to wait. Or maybe I feel pressured to just go with the status quo. Or no one's really going to listen to me anyway, so I'm not gonna rock the boat. Anyone notice what these have in common? Ironically, it's our emotions that keep us from making decisions because we want to avoid emotions. I'm afraid of feeling bad. And yet, in doing so, I feel bad. Another social construct is that somehow we feel decisions should be entirely rational. But as human beings, there is no such thing as an unemotional decision. We just cannot separate them at all. So here is my point for this presentation. To improve our relationship with time, we need to improve our decision making. We don't have to make decisions. We get to make decisions. We need to accept that we will feel a wide range of emotions as we do so. And we can trip at every step in the decision-making process. And it's those trips that we categorize as time management problems. So what I'd like to do with you is go through the 4 steps of decision-making, talk through what those steps are and how we all inevitably trip, and what kind of tools we would like to have at hand to help us get back into good decision-making mode. Sound all right? All right, we got some nods. Just gonna do a time check. Lost the timer. All right. So we're gonna go through gather lots of options. We're gonna narrow down those options, then choose, and then move on. So step number 1 is gather. This first step is get lots of ideas, lots of options. For a healthy decision, we need more than one option. Otherwise, it's not really a decision. The key here is to tap into exploration mode, curiosity, creativity. If we trip here, we wind up procrastinating. Does this sound familiar? We feel internal resistance to even look around, to even focus. We're ambivalent or bored. We surrender our agency, or we just frankly check out. We're not even self-aware. What we need is a toolkit nearby with ways to activate our imagination. So I recommend an exercise called a question burst. And I would appreciate your willingness to do this right now with me. What you need is something to write on and something to write with. So hopefully you have that handy. Consider something in your world that you are resisting or you're anxious about. I don't know if that's a person you want to meet, or maybe there's an opinion you have that you want to post or share. Maybe there's an event coming up that you aren't sure if you're going to go or how you're going to go. So get something in mind that you have that some feeling of resistance about. What I'm going to do is start a timer for 60 seconds. And in that time, you're going to write down any and all questions that pop into your head. Only questions. Don't answer any of them. Don't censor yourself. If it comes in your head, you have to write it down. Write down the questions as they come to you while you're thinking about your topic. All right, everybody, you ready? I'm going to start the 60 seconds now. All right, that was 60 seconds. I am curious, as you take a breath and review the questions you wrote down, can anyone tell me how you're feeling? Stressed. Oh no. Christine feels more stressed. Suzette feels stressed out. Seeing a pattern, okay. Feel more clarity about something that seemed vague. Okay, the exercise worked for Tina. And Judy, seeing some clarity. Anxious, seeing it listed out, but breaking it down will be helpful. Okay. By allowing ourselves to sort of get things out of our head and onto a piece of paper, there's some relief in that. Sometimes a next step can start to reveal itself because you might have only been focusing on the first 3 or 4 questions, but once you finally got around to the 10th one, maybe you were able to release some new thoughts that were popping in. So if it made you more stressed, perhaps give yourself another minute to write out some more questions to get it all out on paper. And then you can pause and see how you feel then. I do have an example. This is one that I did a few years ago when I was just at the moment of starting my coaching certification, thinking about starting my own business. So my questions were, what am I worried about? What am I waiting for? What do I charge? What do I call myself and my services? What if I get over my skis with the method? Can I deviate from the method? Should I join the federation now or later? Who can help me? Is the logo important? Can I change it later? Can I edit LinkedIn before having a website? I look back and I'm like, man, that woman is stressed out. Her brain is all over the place. But I can tell you, when I got it out on paper, it made me feel a little more empowered. I was like, okay, I can kind of sort through this now. And for me, the one that jumped out was, who can help me? And it's pretty low on the list. Like, it took a while for that to come up. But once I saw it there, I realized, yeah, I can ask some people to help me with these. And I felt a little more empowered. It's not a new idea, but it was one that I hadn't let myself consider for a while. This technique is created by Hal Grigerson. So if you want to Google him or see more videos on other ways you can use the tool, I would encourage you to do that. All right. Oh, Tina seems to resonate with that. Step number 2 in decision making is narrowing things down. And for those who might say, Anne, what if I just did step number 1 to the exact number of options that I needed so I wouldn't have to narrow down? I don't think that is possible. I think it is better to get a big, gather a lot in step 1 so that you really have a good chance to narrow down to a finer subset. This step is important because it really helps you align your expectations, get to sort of see what's wild and out there and what really is resonating as options. You do need to trust your instincts. So, Tom, I'm going to ask you on the spot. Would you find it easier to pick one jar of jam to buy from a selection of 30 jars that I put before you, or a selection of 5 jars that I put before you?
I would say probably 5 jars.
There's actually a study on this about jars of jam.
Really?
And they sold more jars of jam if they only offered 5 than if they offered 30, because people just they couldn't narrow it down and they just left.
Now, Sharon would tell you that if the cost was associated with if the price was listed on those, it would be very easy. I would just pick the cheapest price. But, if there were no costs associated, then still.
Yeah. Although that also makes part of the point of narrowing down, is you considered all of the various kinds of jams that you could possibly imagine, and then you narrow down of, well, I have a priority that the price be low, whereas someone else might have a priority that it be the best tasting jam ever. I don't know. In general, among us, have we ever had that feeling when you discarded a choice, like having pizza for dinner as an option, only to have it pop right back up again when someone says, okay, let's have Chinese food? And that's when you realize, oh no, actually, I think I wanted pizza. So I share that to say, you can trust your instincts, that when you're at this step of decision making, of narrowing down, you will not lose a unicorn. Your instincts will make sure that the good stuff stays on the short list. We trip up here and we wind up saying yes to everything. We let other people dictate our priorities. We let other people say what price point is our favorite price point. We don't delegate. We sacrifice our ambitions and needs over and over again, delaying them to someday. What we need is a toolkit nearby with ways to clarify our expectations and other people's expectations. So let's move around a little bit, at least our fingers again. We have poll number 2. Why is it hard to say no? And I will already let you know, I have not nearly covered all of the reasons, but I'd be interested to hear how you guys relate to, maybe it's because you fear repercussions, you have a desire to impress, you feel pressure being the only one who could do whatever it is, you worry about disappointing others, you have a drive to experience everything possible, you honor and accept that that's a great form of validation and acceptance. Why is it hard to say no?
Give it a few more seconds here. We're at about 65% of the attendees have come in. No, we're at 80 now. Disappointing others is clearly by far the main reason. But looks like we've got desire to impress, pressure being the only one who can do it, fear of repercussions.
Yeah.
Those are the key. The drive to experience everything possible and the need for validation or acceptance are at the lowest numbers.
They're there.
But they're there. Yeah, certainly. We've
Yeah.
got 8 people who are feeling that right now, but disappointing others is the clear winner on this one.
Way up there. Yeah. Well, and that's part of our social construct. Being a good person, we sort of directly equate to saying yes to whatever they ask.
Yep.
So I do have an exercise. This is again referencing Brene Brown. She calls it paint done for me. When you're asked by someone to do something, or perhaps you put it on your own to-do list, the exercise suggests that you pause and ask follow-up questions before just jumping to say yes. So it could be questions like, what does done look like? What is a first check-in point? What can I take my attention away from to do this for you? And again, you still haven't said yes yet, but you're getting a much better idea of what are they really asking? Like, can I narrow down what I think they're asking? I would like to do a demonstration. Do we have a volunteer?
If you'd like to volunteer, you can, I think, raise your hand, or you should be able to unmute yourself. Brendan Hayes. Brendan,
Awesome.
can you unmute yourself?
Hi.
All right, Brendan. I'm going to ask you to do something.
All right.
Brendan, I need the demographics report for Q1 for my meeting this Friday. I need the demographics report for Q1 for my meeting this Friday. So outside the exercise, I'm asking, what on earth do you think I mean by that?
First of all, am I invited to this meeting?
I can't tell you that yet.
Ah. Okay.
But your feeling, what are you feeling right now?
My feeling initially is that it sounds like this is something you should have done.
Awesome. All right. Feel free to ask me either the 3 questions that are on the slide or others that you may have, but we should cover at least the 3 on the slide.
All right. Well, first of all, when can we talk about this again? That would be my first check-in point. You know, when can we revisit this?
If you can look at the data, and if where's my and if any of the trends have gone up or down a lot, let me know. If everything is stable, then we might stop there. So our first check-in point is when you've had a look at the trends.
Okay, what does done look like for this project?
I just need to be able to say how our participation has changed in our usual categories. So I just need the data. I don't need a formatted report or a memo or a cover page.
Does anybody else have this information that I can use as a resource?
I think Sharon might have done this in.
Sharon's out. Sharon's on vacation this week.
I am not, I don't know, so I would encourage you to continue to ask others in the group.
Okay. What can take your attention away from this to do this?
I think you can skip doing the weekly update of the website traffic this week, which would give you the capacity to do this instead.
Great.
So how are you feeling now?
I still think it's something you should have done by now.
All right, but with more information, you seem to be a little more armed to protect your time and your priority.
Yeah, and you gave me a jumping off point, and I can kind of reference those check-ins. So
Thanks for playing.
thank you.
Do we have any reactions to that? Tom is smiling, so I guess it went okay. Oh, Lauren, you can definitely waste time not asking these questions. Absolutely. If I had been asked to get this quarterly report, I probably would have made massive tables, analyzed it upside down and backwards, given them a graph, laminated it. But checking in to get a sense of like, will the company completely fall apart if I don't do this well, versus, oh, my manager might have to say, I'll get back to you on that. Those are two very different feelings. Oh yeah, I appreciate how we pushed back. I appreciate how we pushed back. I like being surprised like that. Good to ask what not to do instead. Yeah, that comes with trying to create expectation of priorities of, I'll say boundaries, which is a word that's used a lot, so that you avoid the, oh, this will just take 5 minutes. And it takes you far more than 5 minutes, and they feel like you're somehow supposed to be able to do everything else. I find myself hesitant to ask what I can give up. Yeah. So maybe phrasing it, what can you take your attention away from in order to do this, might have the person who asked you think again about everything else you're doing and say, you know what, this isn't as important as the rest of it. I'll go talk to someone else. Or they might say, yeah, I think this really is more important than that other thing that we can miss for a little while. All right, let's go to the third step, shall we? Third step is to choose, actually take committed action. Say yes or say no, but do something, all right? And here the key is to leverage both the IQ rational input and your EQ gut input. Your emotions or your gut or whatever you want to call it doesn't actually have a connection with the part of your brain that has speech, but being inarticulate doesn't mean that it's unsophisticated. So we can get a lot of strong messages if we listen for them. Anyone remember a time when they just knew what to do, but they couldn't explain why? I think most people have some of those things happen to them. I know I felt it when I walked into this apartment. As soon as I came through the door, I couldn't tell you exactly why, but I just knew this was my new home. So that was my gut, my EQ, adding its input to my decision to pick this apartment. If we get tripped up here, we wind up getting overwhelmed. So we struggle with the pressure of having to do something. We've moved away from, oh, I get to make a decision to, oh, I have to do something. We're unable to figure out where to start. We go down rabbit holes. We make endless spreadsheets. Okay, I make endless spreadsheets. What we need is a toolkit nearby with ways to hear our gut and to be willing to make a step to initiate action. So here's an exercise that I recommend. This is pretty simple. It's just to play in your mind Spotify account, Lionel Richie's song, I Just Called to Say I Love You. Even just hearing me say the name of the song, you can all hear it, right? Yeah. And when you hear it playing in your head, do you feel different at all? A little bit, maybe. So wrapped up in just this one lyric, I just called to say I love you, can help us with so many things. It's a reminder to let our heart communicate with us. You know, as poetic and hokey as that might sound, it is trying to give us information. So the lyric lets our shoulders drop. Maybe we can close our eyes, listen to the song a little bit, see what happens in our body when we sort of go through all of the things on our shortened list to choose from. And maybe our body will react differently to them and give us some more information. This lyric is also a reminder to reach out to others. It can just be a quick one-line exchange with a friend. You don't even need to use punctuation. That alone can maybe break a spell. It can remind you of what's important, and that can guide your choice. Also, it reinforces this simple little lyric to keep things simple. We're not maybe choosing to run a marathon, we're choosing to put our running shoes on. It can help us realize there's just this small little thing that I want to put out into the world, and it doesn't take a lot of energy or a lot of effort, but it's going to make me feel like I'm moving forward. Yes, it is the Stevie Wonder song. You are all going to be singing it in your head for the next 24 hours. And I do not apologize for that. All right, so I hope you enjoy Lionel Richie for a while. And I do hope that you send a text message to someone you care about. Maybe it simply says, hey, I was in this webinar and I thought of you, hope you're doing well. Moving on. This is our last step. We want you to make a decision and let it go. Step into that choice and let yourself be surprised. Be open to what happens next. The key here is to accept that you will never know if you did the right thing anyway. You will never know if it was the right choice or the best choice. You made a choice. That alone is a win. So accept that you'll never know. There are lots and lots and lots and lots, endless, infinite numbers of amazing paths for you to go down. This one little choice is moving you down a great path. If we trip here, we get FOMO, fear of missing out. We get anchored by trying to keep our options open, so we just stay in the same place. We dwell on wondering what is best versus, yeah, what's good enough to keep moving forward. What we need is a toolkit nearby with ways to set a personal intention. So I have an exercise for that. This is going to be a visualization. So I ask that you engage with me, follow along. We're simply going to sit comfortably, settle where you are. Perhaps close your eyes. Notice your feet touching the floor. Notice your back against the chair. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And I ask you to imagine yourself on an ideal Thursday in 2027, 5 years from now. Where are you living? Who is around you? How did you start your day? How did you end your day? What do you see, hear, taste all around you? What excites you about the work you're doing? What activities are making you smile? What advice would you give as a mentor? Maybe take another deep breath in and a deep breath out. If your eyes were closed, you can slowly open them again. Being able to visualize what you want can be a really powerful tool to help you let go after decisions so that you can keep moving forward toward it. And it's not so much a plan, but as something that continues to remind you that moving forward gets you to an even better place. Any other reactions to what came through your mind through the visualization? Were people happy where they found themselves? I like that it's not a plan, but a reminder. Yeah. Oh, it helped clarify what's important. Yeah, and Chris saying what is stressing you out now is not going to matter in 5 years. You'll have a different perspective on it in 5 years. Yeah. Alternatively, in a session I did yesterday, someone wrote that they were wondering what they were doing now that they'll be proud of in 5 years. That was really cool. Okay. Well, the prompts will be in the deck if you want to continue to do this at future times, maybe see yourself in different places. To recap, decision making, we went through 4 steps: gather, narrow, choose, and move on. We can trip at all of those steps. And based on the polls we've done today, we all seem to be tripping at all of those steps. That's part of being human. But the more tools we have and the greater skill we have in decision making, perhaps the less often we might trip, or the more often we can pick ourselves back up when we do trip. So I do have another poll. I would like to know, which of these steps do you think is easiest for you, and which step is the hardest for you? And I acknowledge it might depend on what the decision is about. So maybe we think about a decision related to moving, changing jobs, like a milestone decision. Is it easiest for you to think of all of the options of where you could go? Is it easy for you to, I'm pretty sure I have a good idea of what's important, I can narrow this down? Is it easy for you? You make choices like this. Is it easiest for you, after you've belabored through all those 3, that, yeah, you can let go of all of the other options pretty simply?
So it's looking like the gather piece seems to be the easiest, the gather and then the narrow.
Mhm.
And then the most difficult, obviously the choosing, and then followed by moving on, seem to be the most difficult for folks.
What I want to draw attention to is every option got a vote.
Yeah.
So someone here has said that gather is their hardest, and someone here said that gather is their easiest. And I draw attention to that to make people feel encouraged. That even in this group right here, someone might be able to help you. Or maybe some of those middle of the road ones that wasn't your easiest or your hardest, you've come up with some tips and tricks to get through that. And maybe you could share those with the people around you. So I encourage you, if something comes up right now, to share it right now or put it in the chat. Do you have ideas of what you can do to get through the hard steps? I shared a few examples. And what have you found that works for you that might benefit others? And that could be true in this group here right now, or that could be true in your friend group, your coworker group. The more aware you are of these 4 steps of decision making and how you are navigating it, the more you might be able to help those around you.
And Tina actually has a really kind of interesting point here about, asking a trusted person in this situation, a spouse, to choose 3 options for whatever they're going to purchase. And then that kind of, narrows it down and allows her to then make the final decision. So I would assume that also works very well as you're thinking about putting together teams, right? Thinking about people who bring different strengths from you, and then how you pull those together to make a kind of a group decision moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the aspects of StrengthsFinder, that you can pull a team together, and if they are all in the visionary relationship category, you're never going to get the report out, because you need someone who's also an achiever. So in this case, if you have a room full of people who can gather, and nobody is strong in narrowing, you might get stuck in the early steps and never reach a decision. Oh yeah, that's a great insight. So I have other suggestions. Besides the exercises that we went through today, I encourage you to do some or all of these. The next person you talk to, literally the next person you talk to after you hang up from here, please tell them one thing that you heard in this session. You don't even have to agree with it, but tell them one thing that you heard in this session. You could also set an alarm for some random time tomorrow, perhaps not in the middle of a big meeting, but sometime tomorrow. And when that alarm goes off, name the emotion or the emotions that you're feeling at that moment, to start to, listen to that EQ side of you and the gut side of you. You can also leverage the permission slips and give yourself a permission slip before your next meeting. And you could pick one aspect of all of this decision-making spaghetti that we've been going through to experiment with for the next 6 to 12 weeks, which is kind of a good time frame to see you making some progress if you focus on one thing. So as we transition to Q&A, I am curious to hear how people feel now about their time. So we're going to launch another poll to get a sense of that. There we go. And as we have that up, I do want to reference the extra bonus that I mentioned before. I do have an accountability program. It is an email exchange, so very low commitment, but high impact. Essentially, you identify something that you want to improve. You get an email from me on a Friday with 4 standard questions that are basically, what are you working on? How did it go of what you said you were going to do? What are you going to do over the next week? And what else is on your mind that I could possibly help you with, given my background as a leadership coach? So you get that email, spend about 15 minutes replying to it, and then I will send you my response on Monday, offering my support and suggestions. The 12-week version of that program is usually $220, but because you are here and are good friends of mine now, you have a coupon code for 40% off. Just enter Wooster 40 off when you order, and there is a lot more information at the website. I missed the poll. Oh, there we go.
Can you see it?
I can now.
Perfect.
All right. So for a few people, we haven't moved the needle, but it looks like we've helped some people.
Well, and I would think, Ann, that, the vast majority of this is really reframing the expectations, not only for yourself, but also for others, right? It's how we approach and think and what we tell ourselves about time, and what we are supposed to do in order to be successful, and what we're supposed to do in order to be good people by delivering on the expectations that others have and not letting people down. But also then just reframing expectations, especially if you're a manager of others at work. How can you approach this just slightly differently? How can you approach the conversations different? So really phenomenal tips and tricks, and just a reframing of how we can think about time and what we do with it, and how successful we can be in personal and also work. We'll open it up to some questions. If there are some questions that folks have, feel free to raise your hand or throw those in the chat. We'd be happy to address those. We've got a little bit of time left.
Yeah. I'm happy to answer what Winletha means. I'm happy to answer why I call it Steeped Tea Club. Happy to answer why curlers sweep in front of the rock on the way down the ice sheet.
Let's see.
I have a question. It's not one that you just threw out, but I think at the beginning you did make some references to like perfectionist tendencies and so forth. And that's definitely something that I deal with. And I often find a tension between wanting to do everything up to my, what I think it should be done, and being able to, do that in a timely way. And so I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Lots of thoughts on that. What has helped me are a few things. Acknowledging the more often I let myself say good is good enough, the more often I get positive reinforcement that indeed it is not only good enough, it is actually better than they expected. But it takes some repetitions of allowing myself to release something at the good enough to my expectations, to shift that mindset of, oh, okay, the world didn't crumble. I'm still highly regarded. My reputation is still good. My reputation's actually maybe a little better now that I did that, because it showed a little bit of vulnerability. It showed connection, that sort of thing. The other that has helped me is a whole other possible presentation about the Enneagram, ENNEAGRAM. At a super high level, the Enneagram lets us know that there are 9 different ways to navigate this world. And one of them is with this very, very strong drive for perfectionism and endless improvement and self-criticism. And once I identified with being that spot on the Enneagram, I realized this is a choice that I have. It's my default, but the more I can notice it, the more often I can choose to lean into it as a superpower, or choose to realize I don't need this superpower right now. So lean into it when it's the really big thing that is going to make the project just sing and win awards and everyone's going to be happy. Lean out of it if it's a blog that I'm putting on the website that maybe 20 people are going to read. So I hope that helps. But if I have some other thoughts, I'll share those.
Thanks.
And
That's
when you
helpful.
first, oh, go ahead, Judy. Oh, you just.
No, I'm just saying thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah. And when you first started kind of thinking about those responses, did you actually track those in some way, shape, or form to then go back and actually prove to yourself that you were on the right path? That people thought highly, better of you than, maybe you initially thought, that, the project that you turned in that you maybe thought, oh, it's not very good and this is my worst work. But then when your boss comes back and goes, actually, that was fantastic. Is there a way that you actually prove to yourself so that you could kind of get over that?
Yes. Along the way, it was rather haphazard. And then I would try to remember it when performance review times would come. So I would recommend keeping track of it in some way. most recently, it's with the strength training exercises for your leadership muscles, that video series that I have. I challenged myself to do one every week. And so when you set that up as the pattern, inevitably some will be better than others. But the goal, the win isn't the quality of the video. The win is getting it out every week. And the reinforcement is the ones that I thought, oh, this isn't really a very good story. I'm not really tying this together that well. They get the most engagement. Like, I'm surprised. I realize, oh, they did like that story. The one that I almost didn't make is the one that has the most reactions. So I'd say I offer that as one example of do something enough times that you can start to build that acceptance muscle, I guess. Yeah.
That's great. Chris has a question here. So I've been working from home since the pandemic, which many people have been, and I've had trouble focusing on the bigger tasks and decision making. And there's always something to take my attention away. Any suggestions for how to kind of refocus when you're at home?
Focusing on bigger tasks and decision making. There's always something to take my attention away. Well, the good news is you're aware that something's taking your attention. So you're really close to having that gatekeeper moment of, I need the attention on this and not on the other thing. It is, I'll first start out with, it is really hard. Like, it's one thing for me to say, close your office door. But that doesn't mean a 6-year-old's not going to just come and open it. Like, you can put any sign on the door you want. It's still probably not going to work. But coming up with ways to let those around you, or I am assuming that it's other people who are drawing your attention away, let them know that you are missing doing some things that will fill you up. And even if they are 6 years old, they might start to get a sense of, oh, I see, when she's doing this kind of, she's doing yoga or she's doing whatever, that is allowing her to have more time with me later that I'll enjoy. It's hard, but it is about seeing the bigger picture and finding ways to ask for what you need so that you can better help those people who are pulling your attention at other times.
Great. Yep, let's see. What if so Courtney has a question that just popped up. What if the problem is just a resistance to buckling down and working on the project? Procrastination versus true interruptions.
Yeah. Internal resistance, man, I wish we didn't have it, but we all have it. Even the stuff we want to do, like, I absolutely 100% want to work out every day, but I don't. Like, no one's keeping me from working out every day other than me. So that's internal resistance. Similar to what we've talked about, tracking, like getting a little bit of data. What does internal resistance literally feel like? What are those sensations in your body? Can help you notice it sooner. Like, oh, I'm resisting. I wonder why. Honor it. You can't ignore it. You can't pretend it's not there. And do some reflection in whatever way works for you, whether it's journaling or talking to friends. Is it a resistance because it's something that doesn't energize you? Is it resistance because you feel disrespected being asked to do it? Is it resistance because you feel it's someone else's job to do it? is a resistance because you've done it so many times, you're not learning from it anymore. And to me, the key is finding what is in that task that is motivating for you. Maybe what motivated you to do the annual report 3 years ago, that's not going to cut it anymore, because that was the first one you did. The fourth one, is it, I want to find a new way to make this 2 pages instead of 20? Is it, I want to find a way to make this my last one, and so I'll use it as a teaching moment to get somebody else up to speed? Is this a way for me to shop it around and talk to a lot of people and show them what I did? How can I make this thing that is no longer shiny and exciting a stepping stone to something that is motivating for me? But internal resistance, man, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that looks like that is all of the questions. We are just about at time. So Ann, thank you so very much for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. It is, such a really informative session that we had this evening. So we hope that you found this a really great use of your time this evening. And so, yeah, feel free to throw that memorable moment in the.
Yeah, it would mean a lot to me if people would share what is one thing they heard this session that made an impression on them. If there's one concept of intentionality, I like that. If there's one thing that just is staying in your mind, what is it? Permission slips.
Yeah.
Okay to trust your gut and decision making. Why am I resisting getting something done? There's always a reason, and it may be different on different days.
EQ and IQ, great. Tools for each of the stumbling blocks. Different steps. Clearly, we've got some great takeaways here this evening. So Ann, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate all of you being here with us. If you are in New York City, I will be there next week with President Bolton for her farewell tour. We'll be in New York next Wednesday. In a couple weeks, we'll be in Cleveland, Ohio, and then in a few more weeks, we'll be in Chicago. And then we've got Alumni Weekend happening in June. So we certainly hope that you will take some opportunities to join us if you are in those regions, or if you are experiencing a reunion, if your class year ends in a 1 or a 2, that you'll come back and join us for your reunions. We're so pleased to have you with us tonight. Please take care, be safe, make the best use of your time, and always think about those permission slips as you go into each of your activities. So thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you back here again real soon. Take care. Go Scots.